welcome. Thank you for joining us for one of our weekly webinars for AT&T employees. In just a moment, we're going to be joined by our advisor, Tyson Mavar, who is very well versed in all of the AT&T plans, and he's going to be discussing with you how interest rates are currently trending and how that could potentially affect you so that you could properly prepare for your retirement. Before I bring Tyson on, I'd like to first introduce myself. My name is Samantha, and I'm in Client Services here at the Retirement Group. I moderate these weekly webinars. I'd also like to let you know, please keep in mind that although we work very closely with both active and retired members of AT&T, the Retirement Group is not affiliated nor endorsed whatsoever by AT&T. We're a completely independent group of financial advisors here. Please keep that in mind. The last thing I'd like to remind you of is that after Tyson's presentation, I will jump back on with him very quickly to ask him any questions you may have entered into the Q&A chat throughout his presentation. Please feel free to ask away. It's 100% anonymous, and we'll answer as many questions as we can, time permitted, of course. We like to respect your time and get you out in a timely manner. And one more thing, throughout his presentation, I will be entering some links into the chat box. They will guide you to our education center, where you can view a full webinar recording library of all of our past webinars, as well as a link to LinkedIn where you can view updates about upcoming webinars that you can register for. And the last thing I'll mention is a link to book an appointment with an advisor, whether that be Tyson Mavar himself or one of his colleagues. So please take advantage of those resources. And without further ado, I'd like to just now introduce you to our speaker today, Tyson Mavar. Hey, Tyson.
Thank you, Sam, for the introduction, and thank you, folks, for attending our webinar series this afternoon. My name is Tyson Mavar, one of the AT&T focused retirement advisors for the Retirement Group. And on today's webinar series, we're going to be covering the AT&T pension, specifically how the lump sum is affected by interest rates, some of the important timing issues, some of the other issues related to the benefit options for a variety of different pension plans at AT&T. Many of you know there's many different pension plans, so it's important first to identify which plan you're on, which is a function typically of where and when you started with the company, and then understanding how interest rates affect both the lump sum and annuity payout, we believe is critical for somebody who's leaving AT&T or approaching their retirement from AT&T. We're going to get right into the information. Those of you who aren't as familiar with our company, the Retirement Group is an independent financial planning organization that specializes in working with corporate employees and helping folks plan for and transition into retirement. We also manage retirement assets for our clients, many of whom came from AT&T, some of whom still work for AT&T. And our goal, other than to put together a very comprehensive, low-risk retirement plan for a successful retirement plan, our hope is to educate you and other people like you about some of the important issues you're faced with on your benefits plans when you leave AT&T. There's a whole host of complementary services we offer for everybody at AT&T, one of which is a retirement cash flow analysis. I think this is critical for everybody to do, whether it's with us or another one of our peers in the industry, in preparation for retirement, so you understand how much you're going to need to retire comfortably. What are the risks in transitioning from AT&T, and how are we going to deal with those risks? Things like taxes, inflation, investment risk. And we build a cash flow analysis to understand what, given certain circumstances, is what we believe to be the best course of action. So, for example, retiring on a specific date in an effort to protect your pension money from interest rate increases, for example, or the importance of paying off debt in retirement or keeping debt in retirement. All of these questions that we have in terms of the decisions that we have in retirement can be answered by this cash flow analysis. So please take us up on this if you haven't done so yet. It's a complimentary service. And if it's been more than a year that we've updated yours, I encourage you to have us update it with many of the changes that we've seen this year in 2023. So when we're talking about the AT&T pension plan, it's important to understand how the company uses interest rates to calculate your lump sum. I mentioned earlier, there's many different pension plans, and on the cash balance pension plans, interest rates actually do not affect the lump sum value. They actually affect the annuity payout options. For most plans, we're talking about legacy AT&T, SBC, or Legacy S as the company calls SBC and Ameritech folks. And for the non-management pension plans, most of the non-management pension plans at least, When interest rates go up, your lump sum goes down. Now, what interest rates do they use? Well, they actually use what's called a look back period. And specifically, AT&T uses the November corporate bond interest rates of the previous year to calculate your lump sum. So for example, if you retired today or this year in 2023, AT&T is going to calculate your lump sum using last November 2022 interest rates. Now, unfortunately, it makes an issue when we get close to the end of the year and we have seen a substantial increase or decrease in interest rates. It's unfortunate that they don't actually publish the November rates until typically late in December, around the 20th or 25th of December, typically. And until then, we don't have the information we need to know what's going to happen to our lump sum next year. So we do track the interest rates throughout the year in preparation for the changes in November, which actually don't take effect until January 1st. That's when the company will switch the interest rates and when we'll see your lump sum might go up or down as a result of changing interest rates. So just remember that November interest rates apply and they publish these interest rates monthly, and we take a very close look at them, especially as we get close to November, to figure out whether we're going to make money or lose money come January, and whether we might want to consider retiring before the end of the year in an effort to avoid losing money in some cases. I'm going to zoom into our interest rate slide. I'm going to get into the actual rates here. We have as of August, the data has been published. We don't have September 2023 yet, but August interest rates, you can see here, are a little bit different than last November's rate. The first segment rate has gone up quite a bit, 36 basis points, we call that, 0.36%. The second, as well as the third segment, have actually come down a little bit since last November. Now, these three segments affect everybody differently depending on your age, and the second segment rate actually carries the most weight in the calculation by a large degree. It's actually 3 times more relevant in the calculation than the first segment rate, for example. This year, we actually saw rates drop earlier in the year, but then start to spike back up recently in the last couple of months. And it's uncertain what will happen throughout the year, but it's certainly possible rates could continue to climb and many employees would lose more money on the lump sum on top of what they've already lost last year when the rates went up pretty substantially. We actually are showing on the bottom here what the rates were in previous years. And you can see last November as well as today's rates are quite a bit higher than we've seen in a very long time. The lowest they got was in November of 2020. So anybody retiring and taking their pension in 2021 received a very favorable interest rate for calculating their lump sum. That might not be the case coming up next year, and it might be a while, maybe never do we see an interest rate environment as low as we saw last year. So we'll be watching this and trying to educate everybody if you go on these webinars or talk to us periodically about what's happening with the interest rate, so you can prepare for potentially picking a better retirement date, or also prepare for the right day to take your pension, which doesn't necessarily have to be right when you retire. In some cases, it might make sense to defer that election, but depending on which pension plan you're on, that will define what your options are as far as the timing of your pension election, and also what's likely going to be the best course of action depending on which pension plan you're on. Now, we also have interest rates going back to November of 2021. And this chart, I think, just helps to show what's happened in the last 2 years to interest rates. This ends in December of 2022. So we're looking at the very end of 2022. And rates went up very quickly, faster than they've gone up in a very long time, which was why it was so devastating for many people that were looking at taking a lump sum in terms of what the payout changed by. Of course, the flip side of that is that with interest rates higher, you can earn more interest on different types of investments, fixed income investments like bonds, CDs, money market accounts, even annuities that many people purchase in their retirement plan have seen rate increases both on interest crediting as well as withdrawal rates on insurance company annuities. So there is a bit of a benefit there, but unfortunately, with less money, as a result of the higher interest rates, less money in the pension, it might not be as easy to create the same income stream that you expected in your retirement plan. So you may want to go back to the drawing board and see what do you need to do to make up the difference. You need to maybe consider working a little bit longer, maybe taking a part-time job after you leave AT&T. Should you maybe be saving more now, or should you just maybe be planning to spend a little bit less than you originally planned in your retirement plan? And that's why we run that cash flow analysis, to weigh some of these different issues. And we actually have a real world example here, and it's pretty neat. There's some great tools in the Net Benefits website and Fidelity. I'll zoom this one in as well. You can see here, this is the screen right after you tell the estimator tool in the Fidelity pension modeler what day you're looking at retiring and taking your benefit. So for this individual, they looked at a retirement date of 11/30 with a benefit commencement date of 12/1. As long as, and I just know this individual was on the ALM, the AT&T Legacy Management Program. And for that particular plan, the first day of the month is the only option to commence your benefit. It doesn't have to be right after you retire. It could be several months after you retire, unless you're 65, in which case you do have to take the pension right away. There's no deferral option. But in this individual's case, they had to retire by November to get a December 1st commencement date and to avoid the 2023 interest rates hurting their lump sum payout. For some other plans, you can actually work all the way up to almost the end of the year, December 30th, and commence your benefit on December 31st. This is for the non-bargain program, but not for the legacy management program. So keep this in mind, the timing is pretty critical with this. You can see at the bottom here, it's showing lump sum interest rate, and it says 0%. It's a bit misleading because they're not using a 0% interest rate, but they're changing the interest rate by 0% of what they know it's going to be. And if you look at the assumption details, there's a blue link down there. It's going to show you the actual rates that were used. Now, if you run a projection for this year, it's going to use last November's rates, of course, because it knows that those will be the rates. But if you do a projection into the future and don't change the rates, it's going to still use only the rates that it knows, the rates from last November. And you can actually manipulate these interest rates for purposes of seeing what does an interest rate change do to your lump sum. 1% increase, for instance, how much money do I lose in the lump sum if interest rates go up 1% or 2% or even 3%? And the calculation details, there's even more information. This shows all of the details of how the company is calculating your pension. And many of you probably have multiple pensions with all the mergers. Maybe you moved in your career. It's possible there's multiple pensions at play, in which case the company is going to give you the better of the 2 or even 3 pensions that you have. And we actually gave an example of this. We're going to pull up the calculation details, and I'll zoom in on this one as well. So you can see this person, there's a cash balance account, and that's what actually shows up if you're Legacy T, even the Legacy S folks that have what they call the $400 rule. There's going to be a cash balance benefit that is not your actual full lump sum. See, this individual's, it was $688,000 and some change. But if you go down toward the bottom of the page, you see something called a qualified 417E minimum lump sum. And that's as a result of the Pension Protection Act that was signed almost 2 decades ago now, that allowed companies like AT&T to change the interest rates they use to calculate lump sums, going from government bonds now to corporate bonds. And all that this means for this individual is they're getting actually almost 811,000 roughly on their lump sum, not the 688,000 number that we saw earlier. So it's important to run that estimate and not just rely on that summary page of your pension, because that number is typically wrong. See, it also shows the qualified single life annuity payable. That, by the way, is the number that's used to calculate the lump sum. They're essentially going to project out how much they'd have to give you as a lump sum in order to make you indifferent between taking the lump sum and the annuity, given that you invest that money at those corporate bond rates that we saw earlier, and also given that you live to normal life expectancy. So that's the break-even point. Although if you get a better rate of return than the interest rates used to calculate your lump sum, or live a shorter life, then you might have made out better with the lump sum. On the other hand, if you live a longer life than average or did not get the same rate of return that was expected when making this calculation, then that annuity would likely give you more money over your lifetime. So two very important variables, life expectancy and the return on your investments after you leave AT&T and presumably roll over this lump sum pension into some qualified account, such as a traditional IRA or a 401k even. You can see here the rates that are used, 1.02, 2.72, and 3.08. Those were the rates in November of 2021. And the rates that people that retired and took their pension out last year got to use, which produced pretty high lump sum payouts. Now we have another example here. Same individual, but we changed the interest rate assumption. You can see there's three rates that are all higher than the rates that I just mentioned. These were actually consistent with June of last year, June of 2022. So the individual wanted to see, well, if these June rates hang on until November, how much am I losing on my lump sum? And what's the amount? $578,000. In fact, rates actually went up even higher than that once we got to November of last year. So this individual, I cannot remember whether or not they retired, but if they did not, they would have lost almost $300,000, which is a very significant percentage of their pension just based on interest rates going up. Now, again, rates went up last year more than they've gone up in a long time. It was an abnormal year, but it just goes to show what can happen and how important these interest rates are to pay attention to as you approach leaving the company. If you are on one of the cash balance plans, it's the flip, wherein interest rates don't affect your lump sum, but they affect your annuity payouts. Higher interest rates actually produce higher annuity payouts when the conversion is done to the cash balance pensions. So again, make sure to understand which plan you're on and call us if you're not sure how to figure that out, or if you're not sure the ramifications of which pension plan you're on and how the company uses interest rates and how they affect the lump sum specifically. Unfortunately, what we found statistically is that 74% of Americans over the age of 50 do not have a written plan for their retirement. There's no excuse for this, folks. It's too important to not put some time into this, and we're delighted to spend some time with you if you're willing to spend a few minutes with us. Certainly, we would love to earn your business if you decide to work with an advisory firm and you're like our company's approach, but by no means is that expected if you take advantage of spending a few minutes with us on the phone or having us run your retirement cash flow analysis. Let us know if you're interested in doing that, and we're happy to put it together for you. The way you can reach us is by emailing us at info@theretirementgroup.com, or you can call us at the home office at 800-900-5867. You can also follow us on LinkedIn. There's a QR code for that here. And if you'd like to schedule a meeting with myself or one of my colleagues at the Retirement Group, QR code to schedule a meeting, and we'll be delighted to spend a few minutes with you, even if it's just to make sure that you're on the right track or just to answer a few of your questions. We're here to help folks. So please take advantage of the service. We do have a few minutes left for questions, Sam, so I will pass it back to you if there was any questions that came up.
Yes, Tyson. We had quite a few great questions I want to make sure you get to before we end today. In the event that we do not get to your questions, please use the QR code that Tyson provided. There's also a link in the chat that you can click on to book an appointment with Tyson or one of his colleagues. Okay, Tyson, number one, in 2022, I saw an almost 30% reduction in my lump sum because of the interest rate change. Will I lose another 30% this year? And should I just leave now or wait? Great question.
Great question. I would certainly encourage that person to call us and have us run a cash flow analysis if they haven't done so yet, because that's going to be, there's more variables, of course, than just what's happening with interest rates in the lump sum. The first part of the question, though, are you going to lose another 30%? I think that's very unlikely, although there's still a couple months until we have the data that we need to be able to say for certain. I would also encourage that person to call us and run some pension projections using the August interest rates, see what those do to your lump sum. They probably don't change it that much, given that they're not that much different than last November's. But if we see when the September, October, and then ultimately the November interest rates come out that rates continue to climb, which is the trajectory they've been on for the last 4 or 5 months, then it's possible that you could be losing even more money. The amount is going to depend on how much the rates go up, of course, but you might want to be prepared, especially if you were considering leaving next year anyway, or if you're somebody that is being forced to either move or go back to work in an office, and that change is coming up soon as well. There's a lot of people we're talking to that's the case. Very important to stay close on these interest rates, and it might mean either taking your pension before the end of the year in the case that that person left the company, or you never know, rates could come back down in the next couple months and you'd actually make money on your pension. But if you were leaving this year and that was the case, we might recommend waiting until at least January to commence your benefits so you actually get a higher pension payout. This is in the case where interest rates fell. So stay tuned. We'll be doing more of these webinars and giving more updates as we have them related to what's happening with interest rates. But definitely call us and have us do a cash flow analysis for you. It's a complimentary service, and we're delighted to spend some time with you. I think it would really help.
Yeah, that's definitely a great service to take advantage of, especially right now. Okay, Tyson, number 2, when is the last day to leave AT&T and still take advantage of the current interest rates?
That depends on which plan you're on. So that scenario we went with the Legacy T employee, they actually had to leave and have to leave by November 30th in an effort to secure a December 1st commencement date, which is the last available benefit commencement date of the year for Legacy T employees. If, on the other hand, you came from SBC or Meritech, and your pension plan, if you're a manager, is going to be called the non-bargain program, most likely. That plan does have an option to commence your benefit the day after you retire, that was the example I used. Somebody working until December 30th, commencing their benefit on December 31st. That is an option for them, but not for Legacy T employees. So again, it just depends on your plan. Call us so we can show you how to figure out which plan you're on and what the outcome of that is as a result.
All right. We have time for one more, Tyson. Last one. If rates continue to rise, will it affect my pension annuity? And how about my lump sum?
Again, that one unfortunately depends on which pension plan you're on. If you're on a cash balance plan, rising interest rates help your annuity payout. They also help the cash balance account grow better over time because they're applying higher interest rates. On the other hand, if you are on the defined benefit plan, so Legacy T, Legacy S, and many non-management employees around the country, rising interest rates are going to decrease your lump sum, but have no effect on the annuity payout. So very important to figure out which plan you're on, and then you can start to make decisions about the timing of your retirement with that information.
All righty, Tyson, that was it for today.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Sam, and thank you everybody for joining today. Everybody have a good, safe rest of the week, and we hope to talk to you all very soon.
Thank you all. Thanks, Tyson.